Most people only think of rice as something to eat. But in the garden, rice has a secret life. It's food for the soil. The surprising part? Not all rice works the same way. One form kickstarts soil microbes in just a few days, while the other takes months. Imagine turning a simple grain into living fuel for your garden's health. Today, we're putting raw rice and cooked rice to the test to see which one truly wakes up your soil. Stick around, because the results could change the way you look at every bowl of rice, forever. For many of us, rice wasn't just food, it was a memory. A warm pot on the stove, leftovers wrapped up for later, maybe even stretched across a week when times were lean. Rice was always there, dependable and filling. But here's something most people never think about. Just like rice once fed our families, it can also feed our gardens. And the way it does that feels almost magical. When you place rice into the soil, you're not just burying a grain, you're offering a feast to billions of tiny workers hidden beneath the surface. These little workers are microbes, bacteria, fungi, and other microscopic life. They may be invisible, but they're the ones quietly building the health of your soil. Think of them as the unseen gardeners who keep the ground alive, fertile, and ready to grow. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Not all rice feeds microbes in the same way. Just like we might digest fresh bread differently than day-old stew, microbes respond differently to raw rice and cooked rice. Raw rice has its starches locked up tight, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. It takes time for microbes to break it down. Cooked rice, on the other hand, is already softened and broken apart by heat, like giving the microbes a head start. One of these forms can wake up soil life in just a few days, while the other takes months to show real change. For gardeners, especially those of us who appreciate patience but still love quick results, this is a powerful idea, because soil microbes aren't just science talk. They're the bridge between your garden and abundance. They help roots absorb nutrients more easily. They turn scraps into compost. They make your plants sturdier, greener, and more productive. Without them, even the richest soil turns lifeless. With them, even an ordinary backyard can thrive. And here's the part that makes this really personal. Many of us grew up in homes where nothing went to waste. Leftovers weren't trash, they were tomorrow's meal. Feeding rice to your soil is almost the same mindset. It's about stewardship, about making the most of what you have, and about giving back. The same grain that once nourished your family can now nourish your garden. So the real question becomes, should you toss in rice raw or soften it first? The answer might surprise you, because one of these methods wakes up soil microbes in days, not months. And in gardening, that kind of head start can mean everything. Why microbes matter? When you look at soil, it may just seem like dirt, dark, crumbly, maybe even ordinary. But the truth is, good soil is alive. It's home to an entire hidden world of activity. And at the heart of that world are microbes, tiny, invisible workers who never rest. You can't see them with your eyes, but you can see their results in every healthy plant, every vibrant flower, and every basket of fresh produce. So, why do microbes matter so much? Think of them as the unseen farmers of your garden. Just as a cook in the kitchen prepares meals, microbes prepare food for your plants. They take what looks like waste, kitchen scraps, dead leaves, grass clippings, even grains of rice, and break them down into nutrients. Then, they release those nutrients in forms that roots can easily absorb. Without this process, most of the food locked inside organic matter would never make it into your tomatoes, your beans, or your roses. Here's an easy way to picture it. Imagine you're holding a loaf of bread. You can't just feed that whole loaf directly to your body. It has to be broken down into slices, chewed, and digested so your system can take in the energy. Soil microbes do that same job for plants. They're the digestive system of the earth, but their work goes beyond just feeding. Microbes also protect plants. Some form partnerships with roots, wrapping around them and acting like bodyguards, keeping harmful diseases away. Others improve soil structure, making it fluffy and full of tiny air pockets so roots can breathe. They even help the soil hold on to water longer, which is a blessing during hot summers when every drop counts. Now, here's the part that connects deeply with gardening wisdom. Soil without microbes is just lifeless dirt. You can water it, you can plant seeds in it, but it won't sustain much for long. Add microbes, and suddenly, that same soil transforms. It comes alive. Plants grow faster, leaves turn greener, and vegetables become richer in flavor. In other words, microbes are the difference between struggling soil and thriving soil. For those of us who grew up in homes where nothing went to waste, this feels familiar. We knew how to stretch a meal, how to make soup from scraps, how to bring life out of little. Microbes do the same thing in the garden. They take what seems useless and transform it into nourishment. They embody that old wisdom: waste not, want not. And here's where rice enters the picture. To microbes, rice is like a banquet, but the way you serve it, raw or cooked, makes all the difference. Raw rice is like handing someone hard, uncooked beans. It takes time to soften and digest. Cooked rice, though, is like offering a warm, ready-made meal. One form makes the microbes work slowly. The other wakes them up almost immediately. That's why gardeners experiment with rice. It's not just about tradition or recycling leftovers. It's about understanding the life beneath our feet. Raw rice experiment. Let's start with raw rice. Imagine holding a handful of uncooked grains. Hard, shiny, almost stubborn in their form. That's exactly how they behave when placed in the soil. Raw rice is full of starch and energy. No question about it. But the food is locked up tight. To microbes, it's like staring at a banquet behind a glass door. They know it's there, but it takes time to get inside. When you bury raw rice in the garden, the microbes don't immediately swarm it. They need time to break down that hard shell and unlock the sugars and starches within. This process can take weeks, even months, before the soil shows noticeable changes. It's the slow and steady route. Think of it like this. Raw rice in soil is a little like setting aside money in a long-term savings account. You won't see the benefit right away, but if you're patient, it builds. Over time, raw rice becomes a steady food source for soil life. The microbes will nibble at it, slowly releasing nutrients that help plants grow stronger. That's the big advantage of raw rice. It's cheap, it lasts a long time, and it becomes a slow-release meal for your garden's invisible workers. Once buried properly, it can enrich the soil steadily without you having to refresh it often. For gardeners who value patience and don't mind waiting for results, raw rice is like planting seeds for tomorrow's harvest. But, as with everything in gardening, there are trade-offs. Raw rice has a few downsides you need to be aware of. First, because it's slow to break down, you won't get a quick boost to your soil health. If you're hoping for fast results, greener leaves, stronger roots, you may be disappointed in the beginning. Second, raw rice can sometimes attract unwanted visitors. If you leave it near the surface or scatter it without covering, pests like ants, rodents, or even birds might treat it as their snack bar. They'll find it before the microbes do, which means less benefit for your soil and more trouble for your garden. That's why it's so important to bury raw rice a few inches deep, where pests are less likely to sniff it out. There's also the risk of mold. Raw rice, left in damp soil, can sometimes grow a fuzzy layer of fungus before the microbes fully take over. While not always harmful, it's something to keep an eye on if you're using it in pots or indoor gardening. Still, for many gardeners, raw rice is a comforting choice. It fits with the philosophy of frugality and patience. Just as we might simmer beans all day to bring out their richness, we can bury raw rice and trust time to unlock its goodness. There's something deeply satisfying about knowing that even the simplest grain, left to rest in the earth, will eventually turn into nourishment for the next season of growth. In fact, some people think of raw rice as a way to store food for microbes. Instead of feeding them all at once, you're tucking away a slow meal that they'll come back to again and again. Cooked rice experiment. Now cooked rice, that's a different story altogether. When you boil rice on the stove, you're not just softening it for yourself. You're also softening it for the soil. Cooking breaks down the tough outer shell and releases starches that were once locked up. What this means is that microbes don't have to struggle to get in. The food is already prepared, and the moment it hits the ground, it's like ringing the dinner bell for billions of tiny workers. The effect is almost immediate. Within just a few days, you'll notice signs that the soil is waking up. It might feel warmer to the touch as microbes multiply and begin breaking things down. Sometimes you'll even see the soil texture start to shift, becoming richer and more alive. Plants nearby can benefit quickly, too, because microbes are releasing nutrients faster than they would with raw rice. For gardeners who love results they can actually see, cooked rice is like giving your soil a cup of strong coffee. It perks up fast. Think of it this way. Raw rice is like a pantry ingredient that needs hours of cooking before it can feed the family, while cooked rice is already dinner on the table, ready to be served. Microbes don't need to waste energy unlocking the food. They dive right in. And just like kids running to the kitchen when supper's ready, microbes flock to cooked rice almost immediately. That's the big advantage of cooked rice. It's one of the fastest foods you can offer to your soil life. If your garden feels sluggish or you're starting plants that need an early boost, burying cooked rice can quickly activate microbial activity. It's like flipping a switch from rest to go. This rapid activation means your plants can tap into nutrients sooner, giving them a healthier start. But of course, speed comes with its own set of challenges. Cooked rice spoils quickly. If left on the surface, it can mold, sour, or even attract pests like ants, rodents, or flies. In fact, the very things that make it appealing to microbes also make it appealing to critters you don't want in your garden. That's why the golden rule is simple. Always bury cooked rice. Just a couple of inches below the surface is enough to hide it from pests while still keeping it accessible to soil microbes. Another thing to keep in mind is that cooked rice doesn't last as long as raw rice. Because microbes eat it so quickly, it's more like a snack than a full meal. You'll get fast results, but the effect tapers off sooner. If you want to keep your soil microbes thriving, you may need to refresh the supply every so often. A little here, a little there, almost like feeding pets on a schedule. Still, for many gardeners, this quick action is worth it. There's something deeply satisfying about seeing your soil respond in days rather than months. It reminds us that even small, everyday things, like leftovers from last night's dinner, can have a big impact when returned to the earth. Side-by-side comparison. By now, you've seen how raw rice and cooked rice work differently in the soil. Both have their strengths, both have their quirks. To make it easy, let's lay them side by side. Raw rice. Speed. Slow to break down. Weeks or even months before you see results. Effect. Provides a long-lasting, steady food source for soil microbes. Best for gardeners who want patience to pay off. Those who prefer set it and forget it. Pros. Cheap. Long-term feeding. Less frequent reapplication. Cons. Can attract pests if left uncovered. Not a quick booster. Cooked rice. Speed. Rapid breakdown. Microbes jump on it within days. Effect. Quick soil activation, visible changes in a short time. Best for gardeners who want fast action or need to jumpstart struggling soil. Pros. Rapid microbial growth, quick nutrient release, visible improvement. Cons. Spoils quickly, must be buried to avoid pests, short-lived effects. When you put it this way, the verdict becomes clear. If you want quick soil action, something you can notice in just a week or two, cooked rice is the winner. It wakes up your soil's invisible workforce almost overnight, giving your garden that extra spark of life. But if you're thinking long-term, if you want a slow, steady release of food for your soil over months, raw rice still has its place. It's not flashy, but it's dependable, like a slow cooker meal that keeps simmering long after the stove is turned off. For many gardeners, the best answer isn't choosing one or the other, but learning how to use both wisely. You might use cooked rice to give your soil a quick boost when starting seeds or reviving tired garden beds. At the same time, you can bury raw rice deeper in the soil as a long-term investment, something that will quietly enrich your garden in the background. This mirrors life itself. Sometimes we need quick energy, like a hot cup of coffee to get us going in the morning. Other times, we rely on steady nourishment, like a hearty meal that carries us through the day. Gardens are no different. They thrive on both quick bursts of activity and slow, sustaining rhythms. And here's where the connection deepens. For many of us who grew up learning not to waste, rice was never just rice. It was comfort, it was strength, it was survival. In the same way, using rice in the garden isn't just about science. It's about honoring that wisdom. Nothing is wasted. Every grain can have a second life, whether it's on the table or under the soil. So the next time you stand in the kitchen with rice in your hand, remember this choice. Leave it raw, and you're planting patience. Cook it first, and you're planting energy. Either way, you're not just feeding soil, you're partnering with life itself, nurturing the hidden workers that turn dirt into abundance. And that, more than anything, is what keeps a garden alive. Practical tips and safety. Now that we've explored how rice feeds the hidden life in your soil, let's get practical. Because like any good recipe, the secret is in how you prepare and serve it. Using rice the right way makes the difference between a thriving garden and an open invitation for pests. Here are some simple, safe tips every gardener, especially those of us who value frugality and wisdom, can follow. 1. Always bury the rice 2 to 3 inches deep. This is the golden rule. Whether you're using raw rice or cooked rice, never just scatter it on top of the soil. Left exposed, rice can quickly attract ants, rodents, or even birds looking for a free snack. It can also start to smell unpleasant as it spoils in the open air. But when you tuck it under 2 to 3 inches of soil, you keep it out of sight and give microbes easy access. Think of it as setting the table in private for your soil workers. 2. Mix with compost for balance. Rice alone is like giving your microbes dessert without the main course. They'll love it, but it won't provide complete nutrition. That's where compost comes in. By mixing rice with compost, you're creating a well-rounded meal, fast sugars from the rice, and long-lasting minerals from compost. Together, they feed microbes more effectively and create healthier soil in the long run. If you already have a compost pile, rice can be tucked right in and broken down before being added to the garden. 3. Start small, test, and observe. Every garden is unique. Soil types, climate, and even the kinds of plants you grow can change how microbes respond. Seniors who've gardened for years know the value of testing a little before committing a lot. Start with small handfuls of rice in one part of your garden. Watch how the soil responds. Does it feel richer? Are plants looking greener? If yes, you can scale up. This cautious approach saves effort and prevents waste. Don't leave cooked rice sitting around. Cooked rice is fast food for microbes and for pests. If you don't bury it right away, you risk attracting flies or rodents. Treat it like leftovers at the dinner table. Cover it quickly so the wrong guests don't come knocking. A quick dig and cover is all it takes to turn yesterday's meal into tomorrow's fertile soil. 5. Use rice as a supplement, not a replacement. Rice is a boost, not a full solution. Your garden still needs a variety of organic matter, leaves, grass clippings, kitchen scraps, compost, and mulch. Think of rice as the spice that wakes things up, not the whole recipe. Use sparingly. It enhances what's already there, without upsetting the natural balance of your soil. 6. Safety first. Keep it clean and simple. If you're gardening in pots, raised beds, or anywhere close to the home, be mindful about odor. Rice that's not buried deeply enough can ferment, creating smells you might not enjoy. For seniors who may have limited mobility, a hand trowel is often enough to dig the 2 to 3 inches needed. Have you ever buried kitchen scraps in your garden? Did it work? Share your experience. Your story might inspire someone else. Would you try cooked rice in your soil, or would you stick with traditional compost? I'd love to hear your thoughts. At the very end, so tell me, which one do you think your garden would prefer? Raw or cooked rice? Let's learn from each other in the comments below. These simple questions create a conversation. They invite viewers not just to listen, but to participate, and seniors especially love sharing wisdom from their years of experience. Rice is one of those foods that has walked beside us through life. For many, it was the warm bowl on the dinner table, the filler that stretched a meal when money was tight, the comfort that brought families together. It's been part of our stories, part of our memories, part of our survival. And now, in the garden, rice continues that story. Whether raw or cooked, it becomes more than food for people. It becomes food for the soil. It feeds the hidden workers, the microbes, that quietly turn dirt into life. It proves something simple but powerful. Nothing is wasted when it's given back to the earth. That truth is bigger than gardening. Because if rice can find new purpose after the meal is over, so can we. Just like those grains, we still have life, value, and wisdom to give. Even in seasons when others might overlook us, the soil reminds us of a greater rhythm. Everything has a place. Everything can be renewed. And what looks like scraps can become the start of something fruitful. So the next time you look at a pot of rice, think of it not just as food for the family, but as food for the future. Every grain tells a story, one of resilience, renewal, and purpose. If this video sparked an idea, if it gave you something new to try or a memory worth cherishing, I'd love for you to pass it on. Give this video a like, share it with a fellow gardener. And subscribe to the Evergreen Seniors, where wisdom keeps growing, just like the gardens we tend together. And before you go, let me ask you one last time. Which one do you think your garden would prefer, raw rice or cooked rice? Drop your answer below. Your thoughts might be the key that helps another gardener.